The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op.
Welcome to the Defion Productions podcast. I'm your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin, Don. This is the day in Bitcoin. We had a lot going on in the last 24 hours in global markets, not necessarily Bitcoin related. We had a big move last night in the oil markets. We had oil prices reaching close to 120. I think we saw 116, 117 a barrel. Just before going live, me and my producer were looking online to see where the prices were at currently, and they're down to $87 a barrel. Just crazy price action in the oil markets with the barrels of oil and gas prices. I did see some people posting on social media that gas is already in our area close to $3.50 a gallon. So they're already anticipating the prices, but I think they might have reacted a little bit early with the barrels coming down to almost where they were before last night. So just really crazy. And me and Rich were kind of talking about how we feel like the market is not acting very rationally, as many markets are not. We can jump into the charts to see specifically what Bitcoin is doing right now. We got a price of 68,876. In the last 7 days, we are basically down 0.75%. In the last 24 hours, we are up 4.5%. Bitcoin did have a little bit of a weekend sell-off, only to bounce back. Ethereum sitting slightly over 2,000. The total market cap of crypto at 2.35 trillion. Fear and greed still sitting at around 22. We're just trading in a range for months now. With the oil stuff, we were kind of talking before, Rich, before I jump into this article that I have on the oil stuff, I'd love to get your thoughts on what we looked at before we jumped on live. Last night you had mentioned 117 and sitting at $87 right now. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, like I don't claim to know a lot about finance, but how can we go from 117 to back to 87? That's so huge. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Just because they made an announcement about strategic oil reserves, that's not enough for me. Like, if it had gone from 117 to like 105 or even like 99 or something, but that is such a huge change to me, like, that I feel like it's fake. Like, I feel like it's trying. I'm not saying like someone is lying. I'm feeling like the insiders are trying to stop it from like being authentic in terms of the way they're moving the money.
I'm not seeing us on X.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
It says you were alive.
On X?
Oh, jeez. Hold on. This is my fault. I think I clicked the wrong one. Let me add it back in.
Do we got to restart, or are we go while we're live?
I can add it.
While we're live? We apologize. This is what happens when you're doing a live broadcast, that sometimes we have a little bit of technical.
Yeah, so if you want to apologize to the X viewers, that's fine.
Yeah, we apologize.
I clicked the wrong destination. Apologies.
Yeah, I see us now. We're good now.
Sorry, X.
Let me just repost it real quick while
you're there now.
While I'm in. Yeah, I see it. I got us.
Again, apologies to X viewers. The producer clicked the wrong button.
Yeah, for all you on X, Defion Productions podcast. I'm your host, hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. We can do that for a second time for our replay on our X people. We're just talking about the oil stuff. Good points, Rich. I was half paying attention while I was checking the X stuff. Not full, I won't lie. Let me.
I think my opinion shouldn't matter at the moment because I don't know how to press the right button.
Let me read this article and then we can talk more, because it goes into some of the points that you were making, and then I can hammer in some points as well. Simon Dixon, great follow on X. If you're not following Simon, at Simon Dixon Twit, great follow. If you're a Bitcoiner, great follow. If you're into global macro geopolitical stuff, he is golden on this stuff, best in my opinion. And he posted this earlier, so I want to read it. U.S. oil markets just made one of the biggest reversals in history. At 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, oil prices were up as much as 30% intraday as markets reacted to the sudden loss of supply linked to the Strait of Hormuz disruption. Within hours, prices were approaching $120 a barrel, triggering a sharp risk-off move across global markets. U.S. stock futures immediately sold off, with the S&P erasing roughly $1.3 trillion value on the day. The S&P was down 2.3%, NASDAQ 100 2.7%, the Dow Jones 2.4%, WTI crude was up 26.5%, Brent 23%, natural gas up 9%. If oil prices stayed at these levels for 3 months, models suggest U.S. CPI inflation would climb roughly 3.7%, the highest since September of 2023, with gasoline potentially approaching $5 a gallon. Then the reversal began. The Financial Times reported that G7 countries are considering releasing 400 million. That word right there, considering, right? That's all that you need to hear. That's all you need. Considering releasing 400 million barrels of oil from strategic reserves. Within hours, oil dropped sharply towards $100 a barrel, erasing more than half the intraday move. Global oil demand runs around 104.9 million barrels per day. A 400 million barrel release covers just 3.8 days of global demand. The Hormuz disruption removes roughly 15 to 20 million barrels per day from the market. Against that deficit, a 400 million barrel release buys roughly 20 to 27 days of relief. This is potentially the largest oil supply shock in modern history. Hormuz disruption now 20 million barrels a day. Iranian Revolution 1978 was 5.5 million. Yom Kippur War of 73, 4.5 million. Iran-Kuwait War of 1990, 4.3. Iran-Iraqi War 1980, 4 million. Russia-Ukraine War in 2022, 2 million. Today's shock is roughly the size of the next 5 combined. Strategic reserves also have limits. The U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve currently holds 450 million barrels, still recovering from the 180 million barrel drawdown in 2020, which we were talking before we went live about what Biden did during his administration. If the U.S. contributes proportionately to a G7 release, oil reserves fall towards level not seen since the early 1980s. The strait is not fully closed, but it is far from functioning normally. Roughly 80% of tanker traffic has disappeared. Insurance premiums are up 10x, and only a handful of ships, some Chinese flagged, are still transiting. What triggered the price reversal was simply a headline about a meeting that hasn't even happened, discussing a reserve release that hasn't been authorized from stockpiles that cover days, not months. The 2022 Ukraine precedent is instructive. The U.S. released 180 million barrels over 6 months. Oil briefly peaked at $139, then slowly normalized. But that crisis did not involve a major maritime choke point disruption or insurance withdrawal on this scale. The geopolitical exposure is uneven. The U.S. no longer relies heavily on Middle Eastern oil, but Asia does. Approximate vulnerability if disruption persists. India 1 month, Thailand and Vietnam 2 months, China 3 months. Despite continued escalation rhetoric from Iran's leadership, oil prices still dropped after the reverse headline. That suggests something important. Markets are not currently pricing what governments are saying. My expectation remains that this will likely be short duration, similar to the pattern we saw during the 12-day war dynamic, where escalation quickly forces a decisive moment and then an agreed outcome. Markets simply cannot sustain a supply shock of this magnitude for long. Expect a short war, not World War III. And then it's got the price chart showing that huge uptrend last night, choppiness up more, and then significantly down. And then I believe, let's look, because I just looked before we went on, $89.20 is where we're sitting at currently per barrel, where we spiked at almost 120. So 120 to 90 is a $30 difference between peak of last night to trough of where we are at. And I think we got as low as 82. We went all the way down to $82 at 3:40 p.m. Right. So 3:40 p.m. roughly 3 hours ago. Yeah, exactly 3 hours ago. We were at $82 and we've risen another $6. Yeah, man. What do you think about that article?
I like that article because I feel like it did it's more eloquent than I am ever going to be. Explaining how it happened, and then kind of the ending, like that the market is not reflecting what the government, what it should be. They're trying to like be sunshine and rainbow, so to speak, in my mind. But the reserves are great. It's awesome, but it's not like there's an endless supply, and ours is in full. So, and I agree. Yes, our oil does not necessarily come from the Middle East, but it's and maybe people are overestimating what's coming from Venezuela and all that stuff. It's what the other thing that happened today, which is not represented, was the president of Iran said that we are sorry we attacked the other countries in the Middle East and we're not going to do it anymore. But then, the actual leaders of Iran came out and said, yeah, we are. So
there's a disconnect between the president and what do they call it, the supreme leader,
yes.
which is now the son of
the ID something,
the IRGC or something.
So let me explain what I understand about this.
Okay.
So obviously you have the Ayatollah's administration, and then there is a democratically supposedly elected president.
Allegedly.
It's similar, like if you think about it, it's similar to the way England used to be.
The monarchy.
There was a
the
prime minister, but there was a monarchy, and the monarchy made decisions. That's kind of how Iran works. There's policy and everything, and philosophy is determined by the Ayatollah's administration, and then the government takes care of that. And that's so. But the thing that happened when the way it works, and this is, I read an article and I watched some stuff about this, a couple videos, and I'm assuming these people are accurate, and I tried to cross-reference that. The way it worked was, if anything happens to the Ayatollah, basically the military is given orders to basically do their own thing. And they're still in that mode because of what happened to the Ayatollah. So it's almost like the military is acting independently of anything that the president says. So they're just kind of doing their own thing until at some point they basically decentralize the military and everybody's just doing their own thing. Because they said there's a disruption in leadership, so we're just going to do our own thing until some point. I would assume now with the new Ayatollah, who's the son of the other guy,
who you would think has some sort of feelings towards Israel and the U.S., who killed his father.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know enough of the relationship.
It's also being reported that his sister-in-law was killed, his nieces and nephews were killed. So some of the family was murdered as well. Killed. I don't want to say murdered. You can decide how you want to. I don't want to get into the word.
I read last night or heard last night 49 of the top people in their regime, right, or whatever the case may be, were taken out.
Ironically, this is the part that drives me crazy about the whole thing. The Ayatollah was 87 and had cancer. He was dying soon.
He was on his way out. Yeah.
And he was on his way out, and you accelerated his death, and you probably would have gotten a more moderate person. The son was never really ever in discussions in recent years to be taking over for his father. They wanted to admit a lot of those 40 people that were in that room, that were the next group of people that we're going to try to tone things down based on a lot of the processes that are happening. Because what we've done, including Israel, we have now ramped up the rhetoric, and now they're like, we want his family running things because of what happened. So, I mean, the politics of something else, but there's so much misinformation, or we don't know what's going to happen. That's why I'm still shocked that the prices dropped so much, because yes, the president said we're not going to attack the other countries, but the Ayatollah's people are saying, well, yeah, we are. The military people are saying we are. Especially if there's bases that are coming from the United States in those countries. So who knows?
Look at the screen. I posted this on Facebook earlier today. There was a strike last night, apparently, with Israel striking Iran. Israel strikes on 30 Iranian fuel depots Saturday. I'm sorry. Went far beyond what the U.S. expected when Israel notified it in advance, sparking the first significant disagreement between the allies since the war began 8 days ago, according to a U.S. official, Israeli official, and a source with knowledge. So you got Israel, who tells the U.S., gives them the heads up that they're going to go in there and do some bombing, and then it's much more than what they had said originally, which, goes into the discussion about, like, whose war is this, or who are we doing this for? Are we doing this for the American people, or are we really just doing this by proxy for Israel? And because Israel, the conspiracy theory, which I don't think is a conspiracy, is that Israel, the Israeli government, is funding so many of our politicians that they basically do whatever they say, and we're more Israel first than we are America first. And I know that's controversial, and you're considered whatever you are by saying that, but I think the facts bear that. So I think, hiding that fact and not being allowed to talk about it is just not doing genuine journalism, even though I'm not a journalist.
Which means now you've disrupted the oil supply for the whole world. So, yes, we don't get our oil from Iran, but some of our allies do.
Which affects the prices.
Which is going to affect the prices, which is, again, like, it's going to take a while to do that. Like, so the oil is one thing, but then Israel also hit water reclamation or desalination, because obviously they don't have a lot of natural water, so they use the salt water and they take the salt out, and that's where a lot of their water comes from. And then that oil stuff they did, that, like, this is another thing that the United States wasn't happy that they did, is hitting that oil refinery has created what's called black rain, where there's literally oil in the air and it's raining black. Like, it's really an ecological thing, and it's not affecting the military. It's also hitting the regular people of Iran. You're poisoning people. This happened during the first Kuwait War. And this is something that, is not something I think the United States is very fond of, that Israel did that. That is not good. That's not a good look for us. And that's why now I think that the only good news for that would be is I do think there are people in the administration like, maybe we need to get out of this quicker than we thought, because of the oil prices, because of what it's doing ecologically. We're not winning the war on public opinion with this.
Well, what are we waiting for? Like I said, we took out almost 50 of their top people. They've put in a new Ayatollah now, and like, now what's the point now? Like, that we got our regime change, I guess, right? I mean, that would be considered, a regime change, a new leader, unless we don't like that one. And now what are we going to go after him now? Like, I don't know what the objective is. I don't understand.
The administration the president's administration were saying, I hope this guy didn't buy any green bananas. Which tells us that they're planning to kill him too. And okay, I mean, I'm not going to get into the Geneva Convention or any of that crap. I don't know. I'm not a war expert. I don't know what's legal and what's not. But that's telling me that, like, nope, we're going to get this guy too, because Trump has said he wants to be involved in the picking of the next leader, which isn't something that's ever going to happen. What people don't understand, this is not Venezuela. This isn't even Iraq. This country is three times.
I thought it was 3 or 4 times the size.
And it's 3 times the population. It's as mountainous as Afghanistan and Iraq is. This country's worse. And
were they talking again? You're the political guy. That's why I'm letting you kind of take the lead on this. I'm not as well versed and studied in it. Was there talk? I thought I saw something about maybe Trump saying it, or somebody insinuating boots on the ground. Was that a thing?
What they have said this is what Hexus has said, is that we're not not going to put boots on the ground, but we're reserving the right to put boots on the ground.
Because that's Afghanistan and Iraq all over again.
Yeah, and
this is
what Trump ran on. Like, he hates George Bush. He hates George Bush because of what George Bush did.
Allegedly. No, allegedly what he hates him for that.
He hates George Bush because he has said for 20-something years how much he hated what we did. That was a terrible idea. And a lot of people really agree with him. And then for you to turn and
But I say allegedly because I don't know what the guy really believes or think. I don't consider him to be a genuine actor.
True.
I think he's a showman. I think he says what people want to hear. He says what gets clicks. He says what people view. And I mean, again, bringing it back to Bitcoin, sitting in a room with Bitcoiners, like, he said a lot of things that make Bitcoiners get happy and clap. And he said things that he researched to say to get a reaction from that crowd.
Right.
So I think he says things or tells you things that make you think he thinks one way. And then he tacos, which is the thing now, another direction when the wind blows in a different direction. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows what he truly believes and thinks.
Which is why I don't understand the market. Like, because the market should be as confused as you.
It
and
is.
I
No,
are.
it is. It is. That's what we're seeing. What do you mean? Look at the oil prices.
But now all of a sudden, like we got confidence. Like that's why I'm like confused. Why like I said, I can't believe that it dropped. Like and I'm not an economic guy. You have more understanding than I'll ever have.
I think that's the one thing. And again, I can speak. I think that's the one thing that makes sense because that's all we've seen during his administration for the last year
Yes.
is prices going up and prices going down. From Liberation Day, when stocks dropped, Bitcoin dropped almost 50% and then went back. You know what I mean? Like this is what we've seen throughout his administration. He says things which our markets are all algorithms. So the algorithms will hear something or see something and react, and then he'll taco, and then they'll react the other way. So there's people in his administration making tons of money. Like at the end of the day, that's what's happening. His administration, whether it's his kids, whether it's Jared Kushner, I don't know, but there's people that are just making money hand over fist that we'll probably won't find out about truly for 10 or 20 years from now, long after he's gone and he's buried. And we'll see, really, there'll be documentaries and movies made about how much money the Trump administration truly made during the course of his 4 years, because markets just gyrate one way or another based on things he says and does. And there's just the epitome of uncertainty.
Yep. It's I mean, just to wrap it up, like I think there's a lot of discussions like, okay, how long we doing this? Like, you're not getting a regime change. You got a regime change. You killed people and you got a regime change. I feel like it's going to be very difficult. You're not. They even said the Kurds pretty much. So there's all this talk about the Kurds, and if you know anything about the Kurds are the people that we used in Iraq. And then
Are they with us? They're on our side?
The Kurds were we funded the Kurds in the Iraq, and they helped us out. And then we kind of hung them out to dry. And then we kind of did the same thing to the Kurds in Syria. So the Kurds in Syria said to the Kurds in Iran, I wouldn't help them out. So it's pretty much been the president kind of alluded to the fact that, well, we're not going to depend on the Kurds because the Kurds are jerks and we don't like the Kurds and the Kurds blah, 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 blah. Because but a week ago, he was counting on the Kurds to do some of this stuff with the CIA and all that stuff that we did. They were going to kind of redo. And if you want to see the craziest thing that and if you would have put this on a bingo card, or if I could have bet this on any of these apps where you can bet anything in the world, I don't know what that one is where you can bet anything.
Polymarket?
Like Condoleezza Rice.
I heard
Going to the White House. No, in a million years. You could have
She
said,
was speaking,
give me a list of 100 people that are going into the White House. I would have put that at under 1%.
She's a neocon, though. But she's a neocon. This is that's the thing. That's the part I do understand.
But she's George Bush's neocon.
I understand, but all the neocons think the same. They love war. They love war. War is profitable. She understands that. Those closest to the money printer make the most amount of money. So she understands that game the same way that the rest of the administration during the Bush years understood that.
Yeah.
I don't think George Bush truly understood as much as the people that the Dick Cheneys and the what's his name, Powell. What was his name? What was the guy's name?
Colin Powell.
Colin Powell and the Condoleezza Rice. Like they got it. They understood that. And I heard her speaking. I think it was yesterday on one of the Sunday reporter shows, like really applauding Trump for making this move and saying it was necessary to go. And it's they're all in the, like Lindsey Graham, the Rubio. They're like they all talk shit like in their political stuff, and then they're all neocons, bro. They know that's where the money's at. That's where the money's at. And I got this tweet up here by Dylan LeClaire that we can kind of like plow into next. War debases currencies, freezes capital, closes borders, and levels physical assets. The question every conflict forces on capital holders is ancient. The answer for the first time is new. And then going into the comments, it kind of every war in history forced wealthy people to either flee with their gold or watch it get taken. Bitcoin is the first time the answer to that problem fits in your head. Every prior generation picked gold. Made sense then. The logistics of moving across a border in 2025 are a different conversation entirely. That's been the pattern for centuries. War locks down money and destroys assets. What's new is there's finally a form of capital that can move without permission. And all of this, the reason why we're talking about Iran, the reason why we're talking about this conflict and this war, the reason we're talking about neocons and the money printer is because we have Bitcoin now. We have Bitcoin where people that have value can transfer it permissionless without the worry of it being confiscated if you self-custody it.
Well, I was thinking about this, and actually I had this conversation with my son about this at home. I'm like, we were talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin only, none of the other ones. And I was saying, like, if I was a contractor or somebody that's from another country, United States, UK, France, whatever, and I was working in one of these Middle Eastern countries, after I paid my rent and whatever else I needed with whatever fiat I was being paid, every other cent would have been put into Bitcoin. Because then I knew that if I have to leave and get the heck out,
it comes with me.
And it's not like me trying to pack up a suitcase of my gold bars or my Rolexes or my art or my baseball cards, whatever I'm putting my money in. Like I want to be able to walk out of the country with my digital wallet, and I know that I can't get it confiscated when I hit the border. Like, and we know that countries did this. Like many years ago, like I remember my brother went behind the Iron Curtain back in '85, and when you used to go into Russia, you had to they would search you how much American dollars or whatever currency you were bringing into the country, and then they would convert it to rubles for you. And when you came to the border, you better have less, or they knew you were sneaking in to sell, whatever you were selling in your luggage. And that, so we know that there are countries that confiscate currency when you try to leave.
And it's this conversation in moments like this when we talk about really not number go up, not Bitcoin's worth 68,000, was worth 126,000. We hope it's going to be worth $500,000, hope it's going to be worth $1 million. Those conversations are great, but the true ethos of why Bitcoin was created was this conversation that we're having right now. Permissionless protection of value. Not having to worry about a third party, not having to worry about somebody confiscating it from you. The beauty of self-custody, the beauty of this protocol is that you can finally, for the first time in history, put your energy, time, and value into something that you know. Yes, the price in U.S. nominal terms can gyrate all over the place. We know that. We see that. Yes. But nobody can take it from you. It can't be confiscated from you. That's the true value. That's what Bitcoin introduces to us, and that's what the cypherpunks saw. That's what the people like me that originally got into this were attracted to. The big F you to the government, the you can't take this from me, the anarchy of it. Like, that's what Bitcoin brought to us. And we're seeing it. Like we talked about last week, where the price in real skyrocketed because anybody that held the real dollar, the real currency fiat itself, crashed to zero against the dollar. But if you took that and put it into Bitcoin, now you're pegging it against the USD, so you're not losing the real value. You're gaining against USD and holding value, holding against a dying asset. That's the value of Bitcoin. That's what we try to hammer into people's heads. And people just get caught up in the numbers go up technology, and it is what it is, and we're guilty of it too. We start every podcast talking about the value of U.S. dollar, but it's really about ownership, true ownership. And I'm glad you had that conversation with your son, and you guys are kind of talking about that. And I hope that conversation is happening in millions of other households, in this country, where people are finally, understanding why Bitcoin exists.
Yeah, and that's why I was kind of surprised that Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin, did not go up more.
It did. It's actually held much better than the S&P. It's actually held better against. Let me look at before.
That's an interesting, and I didn't think about it in terms of comparisons.
Silver. I believe
because after silver had the month that it had, I'm assuming silver and gold are down, right?
Silver's down. It's $80 now. Silver's at $80. I want to say gold was at like 5,100. Yeah, 5,150. Like gold and silver have been losing value while Bitcoin has stayed stuck in this range. So Bitcoin is actually holding its value.
So it's been more stable than a lot of the
Yeah.
other things we always compare it to, which I didn't think
Yes.
of it from that standpoint. I admittedly, I'm like, again, compared to the dollar, but again, like I thought it would go up not significantly, but I thought it would go from where are we at 80 something? Where are we?
68.
68. I thought we'd be back like maybe the
We
80s or
got
something.
to 74. I think a couple of days ago we got it up to as close as 74, and then we hit resistance and we went down to like 63.
But again,
then we
you see
stabilized back
the
at 68.
drops are different, are not as well. The first drop was big, but this we kind of have it's kind of stabilized in my mind.
Bitcoin's a highly liquid market. You're going to always have huge moves. It's just there's just a lot of liquidity. It's more liquid than real estate. It's more liquid than gold and silver. It's more liquid than equities. Like,
is that again because of the newness of it, or just
it trades 24/7?
Yeah,
there's no restrictions. You can trade it Sunday night at 7:00,
right?
Saturday morning at 2 a.m. Like there's just no restrictions on it. Let's jump into this Blackrock news. We kind of talked about the oil thing the first half of this podcast. Let's kind of spend the second half talking more specific about the Bitcoin stuff and BlackRock, which is a big custody of Bitcoin. I'm going to read this post by Stock Market News on X about the story of Bitcoin, of BlackRock, which you brought to my attention over the weekend. You texted me about it, so at the time I hadn't done a ton of research, but let's read this and then we'll talk about it. BlackRock just blocked investors from pulling billions out of their own fund, and that's not even the worst part. Watch this. They're identifying middle-class neighborhoods with growth potential, buying hundreds of homes in cash, 20 to 30% above asking price. Regular families can't compete with unlimited corporate money. Then they sell a few homes to shell companies they already own at inflated prices. Those fake sales become the new market rate. Your property taxes triple based on prices no real buyer ever paid. The family that saved for 10 years to buy their first home, outbid by a corporation with infinite cash. The elderly couple who own their home for 40 years, forced out by tax bills they never saw coming. Then BlackRock rents those same homes back to the families they priced out $2,500 a month. The mortgage would have been $1,800. They created the problem, then sold the solution. Your neighborhood savings rent check, and it all flows to the same place. One institution, every angle covered. And then let's play this video here, this video clip.
A few weeks ago, allegedly, BlackRock just bought 50,000 homes at $300,000 each, then sold 3 to themselves for $700K. Your neighbor's value just doubled overnight, and you can't afford to live there anymore. They're stealing the American dream. Because BlackRock, step one, how they do this, they identify middle-class neighborhoods with growth potential, right? Step 2, they buy hundreds of homes in cash, 20 to 30% above asking price. Imagine being that guy putting your shit on listing, and it's like, oh no, we'll buy for 30% more. I ain't saying no to that. I'm not that neighborhood. Imagine the HOA screwing you over, and you're like, I'm out of here. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, peace. Step 3, regular families can't compete with unlimited corporate cash. Why? Because step 4, once they control enough inventory, they sell a few homes to shell companies that they already own. Step 5, those inflated sale prices become the new market rate. Step 6, your property taxes, and this is where it gets crazy. Your property taxes triple based on these fake sales. So the family that saved for 10 years to buy their first home, outbid by a corporation with infinite money. The elderly couple who owned their home for 40 years, forced out by property taxes they can't afford. Meanwhile, and this is where all the good money comes in for them, BlackRock rents these homes back to the same families they priced out. The rent is $2,500 monthly. The former mortgage payment would have been $1,800. They created the problem.
All right, real estate agents. Question.
That's been going on since before the pandemic, and it's just accelerated during the pandemic, and it's just continuing to just get crazier and crazier. It's, I don't know. What do you think, Rich? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, corporations buying real estate. Apartment buildings is one thing. I understand it's apartment building developments are completely different. If BlackRock wants to build a development property or buy a development property, like, I don't mean individual homes, I mean like apartments and things like that, great, because those are different sense. But individual homes, I don't know why we're allowing it whether it's a federal thing or states. I think individual states could say, you can't, that corporations can't yes, there are LLCs that buy homes, things like that, but they've got to put limits on this, because what it's doing is it's pricing people out of homes. And then even this 50-year mortgage that they talked about a couple months ago is just the same thing. The only difference is that the banks are now going to be what these corporations. So instead of like a BlackRock doing, it's just going to be, M&T Bank or some lender that's going to just own a bunch of homes, and you're renting for the bank from the rest of your life. It's offensive to me. The fact that nobody in the government wants to stop it is just shocking.
And the Washington Post tweeted this, ironically unrelated to that specific article I just showed. Many middle-class homebuyers are finding they can't scrape together a down payment on their own. This has prompted city, state, and nonprofit programs to expand eligibility for support, with some areas offering loans to people making more than $200,000. Housing is so expensive that now people earning $200,000 qualify for help. That's a problem. And again, broken money. I have turned into a habitual poster on people's statuses on social media when they post something in regards to government that they complain about, that's something they don't like, a policy or an issue, and I just post, the money's broken. Until you fix the money, nothing else will get fixed. Everything goes back to the money. When you have broken money, then you have broken money type problems. This is an example of broken money type problems because the money's broken, which allows BlackRock to do what they're doing. BlackRock can only operate the way that it does in a fractional reserve banking system. BlackRock doesn't actually have to have the money to go out and buy all of these assets.
But you and I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100% have to. And if you borrow, you're expected to pay back. These big corporations borrow and they never have to pay anything back because the money they're so close to the money printer, the money gets printed, they get access at 0%, and they're generating so much profits that they're never really paying anything back. They're making so much money. You and me, we borrow and we pay the interest, so we actually lose money on what we borrow.
Right.
Even on a home over 30 years. You're buying your home and you think you're making, we've talked about this example many times before, but you live in your home for 30 years, you pay all the expenses in regards to your property taxes, all the expenses in regards to your school taxes, all the interest you pay on that loan, all the upkeep on that house, whatever you end up selling it for, when you minus all that out of it, you're lucky if you break even. You're in a good spot if you break even.
Anybody who tells me they broke even, they must be in a market where they got really lucky where they were able to buy it when it was a buyer's market, and they sold it and they did very little to the house, because if you just think about windows and two roofs, if you're in a house for 30 years, you probably did two roofs, right?
Probably.
Maybe at least one, and you probably had to do, you probably did a kitchen, you probably did a furnace, you probably did all your major appliances, all of those things. And it's, and again, maybe you got lucky where you were able to buy your house. Like, what was the lowest mortgages were at one point, like 4.5? I think at one point they were pretty low.
2.98.
Yeah. I mean, so if maybe you were lucky and you got your house at 3 and 4%, and you were able to lock that in at 30 years, and maybe you did your home equity and you're able to lock your home equity in at 3 or 4% in that same time frame. Sure, maybe you did okay. Or maybe you took an extra job and you paid it off quickly, or you're paying off the interest quicker. I don't know. But the rest of us, no. 90% of us, no. Like, I did the math on it, on how much I paid in interest versus what I paid for the house. And I forget what it was, but it was significantly more than what the price of the house was.
Yeah, and back last week, what prompted everything was BlackRock were limiting the amount of withdrawals, and people were insinuating that there was potentially a liquidity problem with BlackRock. I doubt that. This is just what, BlackRock has unlimited funds. They're $12 trillion company. Their stock plummeted, and then it recovered because that's what it does. You know, a lot of volatility. But these companies and these corporations, they control everything. They control our everyday life in ways that we don't even realize and recognize. And inflation for me and you is terrible, but inflation is encouraged. The higher up the food chain that you go, that's why we'll never get rid of it. We'll always have inflation. And we hear these politicians who will, run on, we're going to lower inflation. We're going to get inflation as low as we possibly. It's not true. None of it is true. It's all bullshit. Inflation is going to be perpetual forever because the people in a fractional reserve debt-based Ponzi scheme system, the people closest to the money printer are vastly rewarded through inflation. And
nothing ever goes down. I mean, yes, eggs go up because of bird flu or whatever. But in general, grocery prices are never going back down.
No.
They may go down a little bit by 5%, or maybe you start shopping at Aldi's instead of the, Trader Joe's, but you're not prices aren't going down. The movies are never going to go back to, $5 and, whatever. Like, it's not. Nothing's going to go back down. Starbucks is not going to go from whatever it is for a coffee back to $3 a coffee. Like, it's never going to happen. And it's not even because of Starbucks as much as it is because inflation. Their costs are just and again, nothing. And you said something last week which I never thought of, and you said it about we talked about gas prices. Gas prices are actually, when you think about it, and you're right. When you think about that, how the gas really is, the prices of gas have not gone up as much of other things have.
It's basically been range bound for 2 decades. Even the pictures I saw today of $3.50 gasoline, that's what we got during the GFC. I remember paying that in 2008, $3.50.
Yeah, like I would have to Google it, but I bet you gas prices in like around 9/11, not after 9/11, but what were gas prices around then? Like $2?
Under probably about $1.25. I remember around that time, 2001, paying about $1.25.
But after 9/11, it probably went up to what, $2, like roughly. And then when we're only like we're not triple that. Everything else has gone up. Like housing has gone up at least double that, right? Everything else has gone up double in that time.
Way more than double.
But gas is still like, well, maybe it's not even doubled in price. And again, it's a fake market. It's kind of like a loss leader, like Tops. Tops sells milk. Okay, milk is something that is cheap at a grocery store. You lose every grocery store on this planet, not your corner store.
$1.52 a gallon on 9/11.
Okay, so and then after it must have gone up to maybe 170, 180 or whatever. But I mean right now at its worst it's doubled. But everything else has more than doubled since 2000, right? So it's really interesting, and I never thought of gas in that standpoint.
Prices peaked in the GFC at $4.11 a gallon.
And we're actually lower than that 25 years later.
No, 2008 I'm talking about.
Okay, all right.
2008, which was 18 years ago,
later.
$4. So until we haven't even gotten past $4.11, and people, like, I understand, like, I don't like seeing $4 a gallon gas either. Like, I get all that. But, like, in the grand scheme,
but your car's gone up 3 times in price.
When people bring up gas,
yeah,
and they complain, and again, I say this as somebody that doesn't like to go to the gas pump and see $3 plus gas. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't like irk me a little bit, but as somebody that understands finance, when I see people complaining about gas being $2.90 or $3.10 or be like, you just have no clue what's happening in your real life. You're complaining about the wrong thing. Using gas as a barometer is exactly the wrong thing to be doing. Looking at everything else in your life, everything else you buy, your house, your car, your food, your clothing, all of that stuff has gone up 5-fold, 6-fold, 7-fold.
Well, like
gas
has
been in a range.
That's why we don't use milk as a barometer, because every grocery store major grocery store loses sale. They lose money
Loss
on
leader.
milk.
It's a loss leader.
It's a
Yeah.
loss leader because you want people to come in and buy milk and bread and things like that.
And even
you don't make money
even
on those
milk
things.
is like $2 or $3 a gallon.
Yeah.
Like that's been the same.
But no one's ever said, "Oh my God, I can't believe milk went parabolic." No one's ever done that.
No.
Like but we do it about all these other things that are artificial. Like because we understand milk's artificial, but like we don't. I guess, but most of us are looking at gas as this barometer. We've elected presidents or not elected presidents because of gas prices, which is hilarious.
The average home price, in 2008, the average sale price of a home was $292,600. Let's look at today.
It's over 4, right?
$414,400.
Right.
And the median price at 200, it was like 204. This is 396,800 for the median.
Right.
Double. So, gas was $4.11. Gas should be $8 a gallon.
Sure. And it is.
And we wouldn't even blink.
Yeah.
Gas should be $8 a gallon based on the rate of inflation with housing prices.
Everything else, if gas followed everything else, yeah.
I want to see. I'm curious now. Average price of a car in 2008, $23,411 was the average price of a car in 2008.
Yep.
So let's see what the average price of the car is today.
It's 38,000. I'm gonna guess. I'm probably lowballing it too. Holy cow! I wasn't even close.
Oh my God. So yeah, a house has almost doubled. A car has more than doubled, and gas is down 25% with a crisis.
I know,
with
no,
an
but-
alleged crisis, and that's the shit that like. People are getting upset. They're like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have a global crisis. Oil's gonna go parabolic." It's like the oil went parabolic last night,
Right.
to $117 a gallon. We've seen 150
Yeah.
in the last 10 years.
Well, when you were a kid, where did you go get gas?
Reservation.
No. Well, okay. I mean, in general, when your dad went to get gas, like if he didn't go to the reservation, because we happen to have Native American reservations.
Right.
But in
Okay.
general, you went to the guy in the corner that was probably also the mechanic, and he also pumped gas.
Yes,
But
true,
that doesn't
true.
exist anymore. Nobody who's a mechanic still pumps gas. They generally now, you're going to a corner store, right? You're going to Tops because they have
Mobile
gas,
or mobile.
or Mobile. But again, yes, but it's not really Mobile selling the gas. It's Quick Stop or whatever it is. It's a company that, you know what I mean, and they're not making money at the pump, right? That guy in the corner that sells gas, that NOCO, whatever it might be, they're getting you into the store to buy drinks and everything
True,
else. They're not
true.
making a lot of money. And that's the difference. They're not like, it's almost like they're loss leaders. They want you to park your car, go in, and they're not making a ton of money. They're hoping for you to go in and buy snacks and
Overpay on their snacks and
right,
overpay.
and
Yeah.
pizza.
Their milk is like $5 a gallon in there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Talking about globalists, let's play this video from Valuetainment in regards to talking about WEF and the globalists, which Blackrock would be a part of.
The biggest fear that the World Economic Forum has is that there are going to be people that will not comply. Their biggest fear is your fight for freedom. Their biggest fear is that you will make individual decisions for yourself and you will not follow their orders. So this digital stuff is absolutely key, because without it, they can't enforce anything. Without it, they can't mandate that you do something. Without it, they can't control your life. So I don't care if you're talking about carbon emissions and what's safe and effective as far as they are concerned. I don't care if they're talking about an experimental injection, a series of injections, whatever they may be, and what's safe and effective as far as they're concerned. This is not about those individual things. This is about the desire to control you from the outside in. And if they have a digital process whereby they can restrict your movement, your behavior, and your decisions with the click of a button, you are done.
That's where we're going. That's what's going to happen. The money is going to be completely digital. We already are. 92% of our transactions are done digitally. People use credit cards. People use, their debit cards. Most people don't carry a lot of cash on them. Most things are digital. But we're going to go to a system where you have to use the digital in order to engage in the system at all. And then once that happens, look what happened during COVID with the truckers. When people were donating to the truckers and they were literally freezing people's bank accounts. They literally froze the accounts of what the truckers were, whatever you call it, the GoFundMes. And then the Bitcoiners stepped up and created a Bitcoin self-custody with a wallet where the government couldn't access. And it was significantly less than what the traditional finance system would have got them. But they were able to get something because Bitcoin is permissionless. Bitcoin doesn't have centralization, no third parties, and it allows you to operate without the worry of government. But most people are head in the sand, and they're not realizing where things are going to go. I mean, they saw COVID, they saw all the things that happened, and they say the buzzwords, the CBDCs, and I don't think they really understand what that is. People still think Bitcoin is digital CBDC and it's control. Like, people just don't understand. But this is where we're going. This is the end goal, is to have programmable money that's programmed by the centralized players. Which is why Bitcoin, being such a beautiful creation for those of us that understand what's happening, on the flip side, is a terrible thing, because the people that understand and the people that want to control saw what Bitcoin is, and they're going to duplicate Bitcoin in a nefarious fashion to be centralized, like the Ethereums and the Solanas. That's all they are. They're just centralized copies of Bitcoin, which is not really what Bitcoin is. And the government's going to say, you know what, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to give you some free. Here's $500 digital dollars to sign up for our token to opt into the system, which all the drones and the sheep are going to say, oh, I'm going to get $500 free dollars. Sign me up. Where do I sign up for this? And then the hooks are going to be in, and that's going to be what you're going to have. It's going to be super easy. And when we saw with COVID was super easy. They literally told you have to wear a mask in a supermarket and walk around, and people did it. And you can't go out to restaurants, and people did it. And it's much easier than people are going to give it credit for. I don't know, what do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we all do this, and you do it, and it's funny, and you're a maxi, and it's like we still want to compare it to dollars. Like, we want to compare all these things to dollars, and every time you do it, and we talk about that we should stop doing it, it jumps in my head, and I haven't brought this up on the pod in a really long time, about like the metric system, where I was a kid and we had to think metric, and we were but everything we try to do to get this country to switch to the metric system, and who cares what system we use, but we kept comparing an inch is 2.5 centimeters or 2.54 centimeters. And I still remember this, but instead of just knowing what a centimeter is, but we all know what a gram is, because we see it in a movie. It's a gram of Coke, right? We know it's a little baggie, right?
Yeah.
We kind of know, but in our heads, we never really, because we decided that the only way to adapt the metric system was to think about the old system. And I know it's just a stupid measurement tool, and who cares? But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like, we don't want to embrace a new system. We have to think about how the new system compares to the old system. And we used to do it. We always did it that way. And I think that's the problem for most of us in this country, is we've always done it this way. So we don't know how to switch to a new way, because we just don't trust new things for whatever reason.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. I don't know where that leaves, society. I think we're barreling towards that. I don't think there's a lot we're going to be able to do to stop society from embracing that, knowingly or unknowingly, which is why it's even more important for people to study and understand Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the opt-out. There's only 21 million. There's not enough to go around for everybody, and it kind of gets into this last thing that I'm gonna kind of end the podcast on, which is the fact that we just officially reached the point of 20 million being out and mined, and there's only 1 million left to mine. So this article up here says there are exactly 1 million BTC left to mine and 2.43 million BTC on exchanges for a total of 3.43 million Bitcoin available. If heavy buying starts, it would trigger an absolutely massive supply shock, which will happen at some point in the future. I don't know when. I don't know when we're going to get Bitcoin hyper Bitcoinization, the super cycle that people talk about. It's going to happen at some point in time. I just don't know when. And then we'll end the podcast here with this video. Before we do, I'm gonna go out on this video, but I do want to say, if you've watched the podcast this far along, please like, subscribe, share, subscribe to Defion Labs Productions on YouTube, share the video on X, write a comment on Facebook, all the good stuff, all that kind of stuff that I do. I'm terrible at with self-promotion. This is a tweet here. There are officially less than 1 million BTC left to mine. The vast majority of the supply is already out there, and most people still have 0 Bitcoin, which is so true. Most people really do still have 0 Bitcoin. We'll end with this. As always, don't trust, verify.